I want to thank the faculty and practitioners also for giving their valuable time and intellectual energy. The energy you spent this semester is a significant investment in a worthy cause, our students' growth and learning. By taking the time to take a road less traveled, you have enriched our students' lives as well as your own. Thank you. And a particular thanks to the folks in the Office of Community Partnerships for helping bridge these kinds of unique, special partnerships, all the behind-the-scenes things that make this business work to advance our urban mission at the university and the community. That's a lot of work that goes unseen. It's extremely important. I'd also especially like to thank everyone involved, faculty, practitioners, students, and staff, for their perseverance and willingness to adapt to the fast-changing, unpredictable, and frankly frightening COVID-19 related events this semester. This has been hard on all of us. Worries about ourselves and our families, uncertainty about the future, difficulties with technology, and integrating it into our dramatically changed lives. Seeing you all work so hard to make this work makes me proud to work at UMass Boston. I'd brag on you all day, any day. So my job is just here to set up the really interesting people. So I'll step aside with a heartfelt thanks for letting me be part of this remarkable event. And sorry for the background noise. Thank you all for all that you've done and all that you will do. Have a most excellent day.
Thanks again, Brian. I really appreciate you joining us this morning. So we have a full agenda this morning. Following, we'll get an opportunity to learn more about the pilot program, as well as hear from some of our co-teachers and students. We'll also have a panel moderated by one of our co-teachers and some of his partners, and we'll close with some reflections by our friend and colleague, Matt Farley, from the Southern New England Campus Compact. I'm going to share a brief overview of UMass Boston's work to bridge community and academics through a pilot we call the Practitioner Scholars Program, which is in its second year. The goal is to provide some context before we jump into the panel discussions with our wonderful students, community practitioners, and faculty members. Surely many of you are familiar with UMass Boston. We are the only public research university in the city and in all of Greater Boston. As such, our founders sought to create a university that would stand with the city and provide students, regardless of their backgrounds or socioeconomic status, with the opportunities equal to the best. We've been defined by our special urban mission for our focus on serving and engaging the community thoughtfully through research, teaching, and service, and leadership. Next slide, please. My office was established in 2011 in the spirit of building on this rich context, and it's intended to set strategies for success in our community engagement efforts. We serve as a hub of information and a connector to develop new and strengthen existing partnerships and build capacity and infrastructure to uplift community engaged work at UMass Boston. Our biggest hope is to ensure our work demonstrates relevance and impact, and that it is in sync with our partners' greatest needs and aspirations, and that we can build the work together. We do this in several different ways, and one of these is by working closely with our faculty. So we set off to create the Practitioner Scholars Program pilot and launched with 4 faculty community practitioner teaching pairs in October of 2018. And this year, we are fortunate to invite a new cohort of our 4 teaching pairs this September 2019, thanks to support from the Boston Foundation. The pilot is meant to tie our urban mission and values around providing access to quality educational experiences and contributing to the public and communities, with the idea that we can do this by connecting the wealth of experiences that community leaders have in the classroom. Our overarching goal with establishing this program was to create a paradigm that honored all ways of knowing, whereby equity in education is at the core, where the role of the teacher, knowledge holder, and expert is not beholden to the traditional concept of educator, of professor, academic at the front of the classroom. We wanted to disrupt this notion and bring community experts into the classroom as co-designers and equitable knowledge agents. We also wanted our students, who often have many obligations in addition to school and may not have access to professional networks and role models, to be able to access an individual that we connected to that core social capital. We lead this program with an equity and social justice framework as a core value to resist systemic forms of oppression and cultivate a more equitable world whereby everyone has the opportunity to thrive and achieve their full potential. We reflect this agenda by focusing on assets of communities that have been historically delegitimized and marginalized through academic cultures and practices. foregrounding identity and power in an analysis of ethics and justice, countering systems, default processes that silence and delegitimize certain knowers and ways of knowing, and by strategically shaping institutional cultures, structures, and practices, privileging those whose knowledge is valued and who gets to participate in the creation and spread of knowledge. Accordingly, our guiding principles for the program emphasize practitioner-scholar co-teaching as having no dichotomy between research and practice, so the learning is seamless and the work is fair, that the practitioner would have a meaningful and equitable role as an educator in the classroom, and that students would be tapped as active learners, able to bring in their own experiences and shape contributions to the community as part of their learning. We see student, practitioner, faculty, and community as an ecosystem, and everyone should be getting something out of this exchange of teaching, learning, and activating that learning. Also, community is not disconnected, but rather a part of the education, as many of our students come from the local community, as do several of our practitioners and faculty. And our practitioners represent the communities with which we look to strengthen our bonds. Each of these groups will also carry away with them benefits that deepen their work with communities. So you might wonder, who are our co-teachers? Well, our practitioner scholars, they're professionals representing a diversity of different fields of experiences, and we have had some significant intentionality in making sure that we have a good representation of practitioners of color who are in the field as a way to uplift people of color who are out there making change in communities, and so that our students can see ourselves more closely in these individuals, given the population of UMass Boston, which I'll talk about in a minute. Our faculty are folks who have already been doing community engaged practice as part of their work. And excuse me, we're very excited and very flexible to work with a practitioner to deliberately infuse that practitioner's knowledge into an existing course that would take place in the spring, and that they would really integrate that community knowledge into the classroom so that it was a natural fit. And our classroom sizes would be no more than about 25 students. So the co-teachers worked together throughout the course of 8 months, starting this fall with a planning period to enhance those courses with a real-world practical and field-based experience, and they're teaching now this spring. The co-teachers co-designed student projects and activities that also would advance the work of the practitioner, their organization, a social cause, or some sort of defined community need and interest. UMass Boston students bring a cultural wealth and a diversity of knowledge, skills, and lived experiences to UMass Boston that really enhance the classroom experience. The university is considered a minority serving institution by federal designation, with more than half of our students identifying as people of color, first generation to college, and multilingual. So our PSP students mirror our UMass Boston population. In our PSP program, we have a total of 71 students participating in the program this year through the 4 courses that are being offered this spring. Each of them vary in class size from as small as 6 students in a class to up to 30 students in a class. Students are mostly upperclassmen, half of which were transfer students to UMass Boston, and they come from several different disciplines across the university. Similar to our UMass Boston numbers, students in the classes are majority students of color. The majority are non-native English speakers, and about 53% are traditional age students. 76% of our students work while at UMass Boston, with nearly half working 20 or more hours a week. And many of our students in the Practitioner Scholars Program are also first generation to attend college. So given the complexity of student lives, it may be challenging for some of them to be able to make the time to have internships or access opportunities that could expand their network. It is one of the reasons for creating a program that could provide them with this indirect benefit. And as mentioned earlier, this pilot launched for the 2nd time this fall, which was the planning period for our new cohort of co-teachers, and the courses are still underway right now for this spring semester. Our semester actually wraps up in a couple of weeks. And like everything, we've been impacted by the shift to remote learning, but have continued to work with our co-teachers to support students and communities in the best way possible. Like in the previous year, we are running assessments along the way to learn more about the pilot and have implemented a community of practice for our co-teaching pairs to connect throughout their journey as a space of reflection and co-teaching with one another. So I'm excited that you'll get to hear from students and the co-teaching pairs, as well as from some community partners about their reflections and learnings while the pilot is still unfolding. And we hope, if anything, that this pilot allows us all to reimagine what community-engaged teaching and learning could look like. So we're going to transition now into our first panel discussion. So following will be two panels. The first is facilitated by me with our program co-teachers and some of their students. And the second will be facilitated by Charles Smith, one of our co-teachers, with some of his partners. How this is going to work is we're going to spend about the next 30 minutes hearing from some of the pilot program co-teachers and students from these co-taught courses. I have a few questions that I prepared for our panel, and we'll open it up at the end for about 10 minutes for some additional Q&A with webinar attendees. So please feel free to use the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your screen to submit questions for the panel, and use the chat feature just for the tech issues or general comments that you might have. So let's get started. I'm hoping everybody can see our folks. I'm gonna ask the, panel one folks to open up your video cameras and unmute yourselves as we go about answering the questions. So my first question is actually for the faculty. All of the professors on this panel have been teaching at UMass Boston for several years and have been used to being the sole teacher at the head of the classroom. So given your experience as a faculty at the university, what was it that attracted you to participate in the Practitioner Scholar co-teaching pilot program? And I will also add, what has been the significance of having a practitioner co-teacher working with you?
I guess I'll go first. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm so happy to be here and share our experience. So this idea of having the practice the practitioner along with the service element is what really attracted me to this. Being part of the business school, you don't always feel like there's a lot of opportunities in the classroom to be of service. So I thought that was really important. But also, given our student population who mostly start working as they graduate and don't go into academics, the practitioner part is super important. I apologize for the traffic. I live on a really busy street. Is really important and something I tried to simulate in my classroom, but I've realized that I thought I had done a really good job, but having Charles in the classroom, I realized there's so many little pieces that are missing and so much value that the students can get from having an actual practitioner who knows the language and who knows, the politics and all of that about working in the finance industry. And I know I don't have a ton of time and I have so much to share, but one thing I did want to say is that this whole experience has sort of reaffirmed the need and the value of having practitioners contribute in some way. So ideally it would be a co-teaching partnership. I think that that's of incredible value. But the other thing, and when we're talking about what is this called? Owners of knowledge. Who owns knowledge? What is it called? Keepers of knowledge, whatever it is. I love this idea, though I can't remember what it's called.
Who owns knowledge?
Who owns knowledge? So I think always students are feeling like they're learners, right? And so in this particular course, which is a case-based course generally, and usually we use publicly traded corporations, but because of our partnership with Charles, we're able to help small business owners, which has been fantastic. And I think in that way, students have really learned the value of their own knowledge, that they have that knowledge that they can contribute, and that's of value to the community members, even though they're still working on their degrees. And I've been really heartened by the amount of effort and the amount of caring that our students have had for helping these business owners grow. And I'm hoping that this gives them the confidence and also compels them to continue to be of service. So it's been a really nice experience for us all.
Thanks, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Dr. Negron?
Thanks. Okay, so I co-taught the Latino Leadership Opportunity Program seminar with Monica Cohen. And I think a couple of things in relation to this question of what interested me. First, you know, I had had some previous experience co-teaching in this course and had already learned about the potential of the kind of dialogue that can happen within the classroom that is difficult to, you wouldn't be able to do it without a partner who has that a specific kind of expertise. And I appreciated that, particularly because of interests that I have in interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research and teaching and dialogue, and you're really fascinated by, you know, the cool things and the beautiful ideas that can come forth when people are in conversation with each other around shared interests, but really bringing unique lens. So I think that was one big pull. The other big pull for me was that, you know, to be honest, if it wasn't for Monica, the course wouldn't have been possible. At least it wouldn't have been possible in this way. So this program was an opportunity to actually bring a new course to campus that would have otherwise not existed, which specifically trained students on how to put together documentary films. And I'm not a documentary filmmaker expert, and you know, so I brought a particular angle, but without her expertise, it just wouldn't have been possible. So it was a way to bring something new to campus as well. Are we also answering what we learned? I think a couple of things, you know, sort of what I take away from the experience. I think that there are two main things. So it's on the one hand humbling in a sense, you know, for some of the reasons I've already described. You know, the course, you know, the heart of the course is really this documentary film training that Monica was able to provide, and so I was as much a learner in that whole process as the students were. And so, you know, that's very much how I experienced the whole thing. So I learned about documentary filmmaker from her and from being able to provide feedback to students. So that's one big thing. But the other thing that I take away from it is just, I was also able to get a sense of my own voice. You know, as professors, and I've been teaching for more than 10 years, you get a sense of like what your content knowledge expertise is. And so obviously there's certain specific like content knowledge I was able to bring in dialogue with Monica in this course, but I also got a sense of like my particular worldview, like the lenses, like, you know, certain inclinations, my general voice. I think I appreciated having that dialogue and that contrast in the classroom to make me more explicitly aware about what I bring to my teaching that goes beyond my content knowledge.
Thank you, Rosalind. I forgot to mention that Professor Rosalind Negron is kind of part of our pre-pilot because before Practitioner Scholars Program got started, we worked with Rosalind Negron to have a co-teacher at the time from Boston City Hall come and co-teach a course with her. And then after we did that is when we decided to launch the full pilot program. So I forgot to acknowledge that, but I'm really grateful to Dr. Negron because a lot of her experience in that pre-pilot phase helped inform what we were going to do when we decided to launch the pilot program. So I'm going to shift the next question to our practitioners. Whom are joining our Charles Smith and Monica Cohen. Matt, I know you had some notes from Carolyn, so feel free to chime in if you'd like to. But for many of the community practitioners in our program, this was the first time teaching a full course in the university context. So I'm wondering, how has participating as a co-teacher impacted your own perception about your expertise and about teaching overall?
I can chime in.
Thanks, Monica.
Yeah, so I was co-teaching with Dr. Negron, and it's been an incredible experience because documentary filmmaking has in its nature two things. So it's deeply rooted in storytelling and research, but it's also rooted in collaborative work. And Rosalind Negron, Dr. Negron, as an anthropologist, is also deeply rooted somehow in storytelling and research. And this was absolutely a collaborative process. So for the nature of what I do, this is the natural way to teach it. And even though it was the first time experiencing it, I think I could never teach this course without a partner. Or teach documentary film or create documentary film without having a partner that has a completely different expertise from mine, because I think is the best way that knowledge is constructed. So I think the way that this course has impacted my perception of my own work is the fact that now I have a sense of clarity of how my work should be done. It should be done in collaboration, and it should be done sharing expertise with people that have deeper knowledge in whatever topic I'm exploring through my films. And I'm not only talking about Dr. Negron, I'm talking about the students who also hold the knowledge. And it was beautiful to see how they brought their own stories into the classroom and brought their own perspectives. And each one of the films they've created bring a completely different world, not only their stories, but also the styles and the sensitivities, the artistic sensitivities that each one of them have. And this course, because it was a natural to documentary film to have different voices and to have different perspectives, students were able to rise to the occasion and make incredible films.
I was going to poke at you some more, Monica, because as we've gone through this journey together in the last several months, it seems to me that you felt like you've grown in even owning your expertise in the classroom. And you shared a little bit about that when we met in our last network of practice. So I'm wondering if you can share that with the wider audience, sort of what that journey has been like for you to start owning your expertise as a teacher.
Yeah, so I learned documentary film on the field. And now it would be 11 years ago, I started doing documentary film and I learned the craft on the field. So I never went to a university to learn it. So somehow that knowledge stayed with me, and I didn't quite have the confidence to teach what I've learned. Or even acknowledge that I had something to teach. And being able to share it in a classroom has given me the confidence, I guess, that I actually know and own the information that I have learned throughout the years, and I'm able to teach it. So, yeah.
Thanks, Monica. Charles, do you have some thoughts to add around how this has maybe shifted your perception about your expertise and about teaching?
Well, you're probably talking to the wrong person about shifting my expertise. I always thought I was very confident in what I know about the financial field. What this has given me is, some additional skills in how to get across that piece to the students and really talk with students from various language, things to that nature. And a lot of this is due to Kristen. So we didn't know each other. We called each other on a Friday, got accepted in this on a Monday. So it was 4 days of intense talks, and we really moved really fast. but it's been a great pairing, and she has a completely different style than I do. And, that works, I would think, well for our class. But what I would definitely say is that our class benefits from it because they can see her talents in teaching and then my talents in relating it to the field and how this actually works in the day-to-day. Because the one thing that being in academia doesn't do, it doesn't give you the day-to-day knowledge and how these corporations function. These students are going to go into corporations and not, especially in the finance field. So we're teaching finance and they don't have any clue. And I remember when I first walked into a job after, getting through school and thinking it was going to be something totally different, and then getting there and being like, oh, this is the job. There's a totally different thing in what you learn and what the job is. And there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that you never thought you'd have to deal with that you have to deal with. It's people management a lot of times. It's not really fun. Like, nobody gets in this to manage people, but that's what you end up doing a lot of times. People, egos, and the numbers come easy. The actual numbers in the application come easy because if you're good at, you've learned what you did, that piece of it is universal. But it's the other stuff around that I don't think students get a chance to participate in very often. And what I've tried to do is bring that lens to say, all right, you're going to be stuck in this situation. How do you deal with it? Here's how I've seen it work out. Here's what I tell you to do. Here's what I tell you not to do. Your choice if you want to take it, but you have to use your own lens to view it from. And I think that's been probably the biggest value add that I could have given to the students.
And Charles wants to continue teaching. I know that you joined the pilot because you've been kind of curious about wanting to take this on as a potential part of your path. Do you think that this has reinforced that for you?
Yes, it definitely has. I would say that the abruptness of what has happened this semester has definitely gave me a different lens, but I basically learned how to teach 2 courses in 1 year, one in the in-person course and one in the online course. And to be fair to the students, I haven't been the best at the online course due to all the additional pressures that are on me. So I do apologize to my student team and my and the entrepreneurs. We've all been pulled in different ways, but it has taught me a lot about putting together what was a full course to be taught individually and then teaching an online course abruptly. So I think I can do both now with a little bit of better knowledge, and we'll see how that works out in the end.
I have a question for you all later about that. So we'll get into that. So let me shift to the students. And so I'm so grateful for Celine and Salem for joining us this morning. You know that one of the goals of this initiative was to change the way that traditional teaching and learning happens by introducing this practitioner into the classroom and really bridging and equalizing knowledge from the field and academia. So what has it been like for you to have a community leader or practitioner in the classroom? And how has this been different from previous classroom experiences?
I'll go. So one of the things that I think, as you were saying, like in the intro about how this initiative was meant to uplift students in our community, I really take that to value because I think the biggest thing that working with a practitioner or working with Monica was that it was a huge motivator because we have somebody who's been in the field, has experience and the passion for filmmaking. And with both Rosalind and Monica creating like the curriculum, once you see it, you know it's gonna be jam-packed and you know that you have expectations put on you. And like going into it, I knew we were creating a film. For me, I just saw it as a video. I knew we were creating a project, meeting people, but right away, they already started calling us like, these are your films you are creating. You guys are directors of your films. Like that, I did not see myself in that way. And so for one thing, I felt like the work I was making was really going to, as the title of our course is meant to do, is to create stories that give social impact. And I felt that from the beginning. And another thing besides like more of getting to understand like the practical skills that comes with making a story and with filming, because Monica understands the process of filming, a lot of the maybe emotional strains that come with it, she can talk through with you. And especially now that, you know, this semester has switched courses, a lot of our stories have, all of our stories have become personal. And so when it comes to editing, there is a form of vulnerability in it. And she acknowledges, like, even if looking out in, it seems like you're just putting or splicing videos together. Like there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And for those of us who are learning editing for the first time, you know, it's all of that is taken into account. And yeah, I think that, you know, it has, like I said, it's been a huge motivating factor. And for a lot of UMass Boston students who are hard workers, I think that's something that we deserve. So yeah, thank you.
You're right. You all do deserve this. So I thank you for that. Salim, you want to share a little bit about what it was like to have the co-teacher experience, and also has this been different for you from previous classroom experiences?
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely been different. It's been super nice having the practitioner here, because just like you're getting two different perspectives from two different people who have different styles and who bring in different inputs into the class. And we know Kristen from like past classes too, and we've kind of seen how she teaches, and a lot of it is like theoretical, and then Charles kind of comes in from this different world and is able to share his real life experience and how he deals at his job and what he does day to day. And it's been kind of really nice to be able to put those two together, and it kind of just being in class, learning about the numbers and learning about the concepts, and then hearing about Charles' experience and how he puts that into action has been really helpful to see. But definitely the different perspective that comes from it has been super hurtful, and we've been really grateful to be able to experience both of that.
So I'm going to ask a question of the faculty again. In what ways has this pilot, and I know Rosalind started talking about this a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering if you can share in what ways the pilot has challenged your own ideas about knowledge and how it can be shared.
I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna think as I talk, so I'm not sure where I'll end up with it. But I mean, I as you said, I think that there were some initial thoughts about this in my comments. You know, for me, kind of becoming more aware of. So for me personally, as an individual, like there are different forms of knowledge that I, as an individual, have. Right? There's a knowledge that comes with an expertise. There's a knowledge that's tied to my own experience. There's the knowledge that has to do with my practice as a teacher. And, you know, I wasn't appreciative of all those things. So always in my own teaching. So I think that, you know, this experience, is, you know, on a very personal level, is an opportunity to not only to become aware of them, but to sort of, especially kind of in the personal experiential knowledge, where, you know, in those because there were certain kinds of topics or things that we talk about where my expertise as an anthropologist wasn't necessarily relevant. but like my personal knowledge and my experience as a woman, as a woman of color, as a mom, or what have you, or as someone experiencing sort of the madness of the COVID crisis, became really relevant and a way to connect with the students and with Monica as well. And I think that there was a sense that there wasn't a real boundary between the different knowledges that we as individuals held. And it was like sort of fair game to share who we were in a very kind of vulnerable way. So I think it was a very unique experience for me to sort of step out of the role of an expert into, you know, and again, like the COVID experience really sort of brought that to the front, to just all of us sort of be emotionally very naked sometimes. And that, you know, my experience wasn't any more valuable than the students' experiences or the practitioner experience. It was like a very level playing field. And so the external context kind of highlighted that, but I think the nature of the course itself and the way that we were sort of playing around with what we brought with the course made it facilitated that. I don't know if that quite makes sense, but.
So I'm gonna ask a question, and either one of the practitioners can answer this one. But for the practitioners, in what ways have you noticed that students have been impacted by your contributions in the classroom and beyond? And by beyond, I mean what you do in the field as well.
I can speak to that. And I can speak to that. One of my own students is on the line. So Salam wants to work in the finance industry. And, you know, unfortunately this happened, but we've had some talks around really setting her up for success and doing a financial analyst role, things like that. So when you come into this and you're looking for that, but you don't know anybody, it becomes jarring, becomes challenging. But having a link to know where the programs are and who the people are and those things, we can talk about those things and really propel her to the next level. And in addition to that, just in all the classroom talks, it's really just been about understanding what the day-to-day is. And, you know, so the first day, I think we asked the questions about what do you want to do after school. Like 50% of our classes, they want to be CEOs, CFOs. And so I'm all like, all right, so now you have to prepare a plan in order to know how to manage through the numbers. And that's, if we take that lens through the whole class and you learn how to do that, now you're ready to manage. And, you know, whether your company is a $500,000 company, $100,000 company, or multi-million-dollar company, you're ready to manage through the numbers. And taking that whole lens through the class, I think, is giving them some preparation for what they're going to have to do if they choose to step in that role. Some of them want to be, you know, directors of finance, some various topics. But, you know, if you want to be a CEO, you got to learn how to manage the numbers.
So Salam, because Charles gave you a shout out during his remarks, I'm wondering if you can tell us how you think a model like this can assist students like yourselves in connecting the dots between academics and the real world knowledge that you'll need.
Yeah, for sure. So like in the academic world, like a lot of times that you take classes and it has a lot to do with grades, and that's kind of how like it's structured. You take a class, there's exams, you get grades, and the real work kind of works like that, but there are so many different little things that goes into it that you might not be aware of. But for example, for our class, we're working with a lot of like small business clients, and something that it didn't really appear to me before was that being able to communicate with these business clients, that people that I don't really know before, and communicating with them through email has been like a really big deal, because communication is key. And I feel like before I haven't really thought about this, because I'm like, I know my professors so well, and I get to see them a lot, and I get to interact with them a lot. So it's really never put any thought into how I communicate with them. But versus like when I'm communicating with a business client, just sort of like how to say things properly and how to get my points across and things like that, I feel like are such a big deal in the real world that maybe are not in our academic world, has been very helpful to know. And yeah, like we talk a lot about in class, like having the knowledge, but also like having the ability, like Charles mentions a lot of like it's people's management and being able to manage people and work through people and communicate with others and interact with them is such an important aspect too. So it's been really nice connecting it that way where you have the knowledge here, but it's also very important to know being people's person and getting to know them and being able to communicate with them also is a huge thing.
Thanks. So I have a few more questions. I've been monitoring the chat and doesn't look like we have any questions coming in from participants. So I will use the next 3 questions as like popcorn style. So I'll just put it out there and anybody can answer them, whether you're a faculty, a practitioner, or a student. But we did talk a little bit about move to remote learning, and I know that that's impacted this pilot, it's impacted everybody's life, it's impacted the world. But maybe you can share a little bit relative to this PSP course. What did life before COVID look like? And now that it is COVID, how have you had to adapt and change to move ahead with the goals of the pilot in the course? So anybody can answer this question.
I think
Monica?
I can speak.
Okay.
Well,
Monica?
Kristen, go ahead.
No, Monica, you go first, and then we'll go to Kristen.
Yeah, okay, so the goal of the course was to create a film that was connected to the students' community and that could relate to a much universal topic, a public policy that affected these individual stories. And the beginning of the class, we started exploring these stories for the students. They had touched on gentrification, on disability access in UMass, on immigration. And then this happened. And film is rooted in connection and touching and being out there and being able to interview and hold equipment and share things. And obviously this crisis does not permit that. So we had to rethink our projects completely. And like Celine was mentioning, ask our students to be even more vulnerable and tell their own personal stories. It was going to become a lot more personal because they were filming themselves or their very close environment, which was their house, their family, themselves. So it really pushed students to be vulnerable. And I think it was hard at the beginning. I think it actually, the fact that it became so vulnerable and so personal pushed one of the students out of the class, because this crisis affects people differently. And for some people, the strengths on their personal life have become a lot bigger than before. Even if before were hard, now are even harder. And the student had to work all night, and the student didn't have a very peaceful environment in his house. And confronting this project and also having to analyze and see inside and ask questions, and all of that raised a lot of anxiety. And I think he left because of it. So that was a loss. That was our loss. As for the other students, I think they broke the barrier of the difficulty of being vulnerable, and they were able to touch on matters that they wouldn't have if this had never happened. That ask themselves questions, and how in one of the projects that I'm leading right now with other co-directors, 40 co-directors around the world, around the question of what happens when people is forced to confront themselves. And I think this crisis is doing exactly that, is confronting yourself with yourself. And our students had to do that. So that was life before and after COVID.
During COVID, right? Because we're still
Yeah.
not over this chapter.
And will not be very soon.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Kristen, I know you wanted to jump in earlier. Did you want to share?
Yeah, so originally Charles and I had planned to do sort of a hybrid course where we do, sort of half of what I typically do with publicly traded corporations, and then the other half of the class working with our community partners, the business owners. And then when we had to not have our face-to-face, of course, I miss my students terribly because I like seeing them. But when we had to do when we couldn't do face-to-face anymore as a result of COVID, we decided to really prioritize our serving our community members, our business owners. So we had to sort of drop a lot of content, and I sort of have mixed feelings about that. But I know the most important thing for us was serving our community partners and the business owners. And I think that's also helped keep the students really motivated. I think it would have been difficult to keep them motivated and engaged if we're working with abstracts or corporations that are sort of untouchable. But because they really care about helping or serving our community members, they've been really engaged in that and really doing a lot of work and research and thinking so to support them. And that has been really nice to see. So it almost doesn't look like what we imagined, but I think that it will have been a very rich experience for all of us.
Do any of the students want to chime in on this question? What was life before and now with COVID? How have you had to adapt and change for this class that you're a part of?
I'll go. Yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment. But before, our classroom setting is really nice. We had these colorful chairs and tables, and it's just been really nice. I'm sure the professors could say the same, but it's nice to be able to be in that environment and face the teachers and face my classmates. And obviously, like after COVID, that's not the case. It's been an adjustment being able to like sit in my room and face my computer. But I think like Kristen mentioned, there are still people who sort of like depend on us and really look up to us and like look for our expertise and like what we have learned and how we can help them. So that's been one thing that we've been able to look forward to, because I think that with other classes, I find myself feeling like, oh, let me just get through this to get through this for me. But with this class, I feel like there are people that are doing so many important different things, especially like my business, the client I'm working with, her business sort of works with women of color and empowers them, encourages them, and sort of works with them to get through times like this and their daily life. So I feel like that has a much bigger purpose, that I take it so seriously, and I feel like I attend to it more despite like what's going on in my environment. But it's definitely been an adjustment.
Yeah, I'd like to add on. I have like the same sentiments as Salam did. Like generally, and I've already kind of mentioned this before, but because I'm just going to say that because our classes are again so small, even when this pandemic hit and we had to go online, like the intimate connection still continued. Like Rosalind talked about how there's the like constant need for dialogue, and that still continued when classes started on Friday. A lot of like the readings that we were given, like it's still in the beginning, like it would be like, how can we better express someone else's story to maybe ourselves or to the bigger like power structures. And in this case, it's still the same thing. And so when each of us give like a heads up on how we're doing mentally and physically and whatnot, we're still all like working hard on our videos. And so when we bring in dialogue that works off of each other, like I still feel that in the end, like we're still really excited to like get this, well, to finish it and to someday probably show it.
So to that point, I know Rosalind and Monica are working with us and are partners at the Gaston Institute. So just a preview to the audience, we will at some point be finding a way to share those stories with the public. And so stay tuned to when that event will occur. I was wondering, again, popcorn style, anybody who wants to answer this question, what is the most unique part of this model for you? And what potential impact do you think that it could have at UMass Boston and at schools like UMass Boston that are serving a greater population of first generation to college, you know, students of color and low-income students? Kristen?
Hi, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, it's okay.
So as I said before, because of our population, I think most of our students go right into the workforce if they're not already there already. So it's always been a priority of mine to be as practical as possible. So I always use real world data. I try to sort of guess what practitioners do or sort of survey, but there is no substitute for having an actual practitioner in the classroom. Because even though I forgot to mention before, as a result of COVID, Charles has been working on the payroll protection program, small business lending thing. So he's been super busy with that. And I honestly could not be doing this class without him, even though he's been very busy with that. He'll still show up for class on Thursday. And if he talks for 15 minutes in total, he usually talks for more, but every single second of that is super valuable for us, that practical piece. We could not be doing a good job serving our community members without Charles's input. And so the main thing that I wanted to get across today was that I don't think there's a good substitute for having a practitioner in the classroom. So at whatever level we can do it, we should be doing it. And that's how best we can serve our specific community that's getting ready to join the workforce and don't have a lot of time to sit around and build up skills and knowledge before they can make income to support their families. So I think that it's really super valuable to have them, and I hope that this is something that can continue doing.
Thanks, Kristen. Celine, yeah. I think did you want to jump in earlier, Celine? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that I love the class size. I just love how small it was. I always say that. Even when I spoke to you guys before. But yeah, I just love how small the classes are, and the fact that it seemed like, because there were instances where when we, I think there was some sort, we had resources available to us where like if we didn't have enough storage in our laptops, we were able to get external hard drive, or if someone didn't have an editing software, we could purchase that. Like there was, because when being in a public college, like you experience a lot of being underfunded. So the fact that we were able to have like a small stipend that helped, each of our needs, it didn't like deter us from continuing the work, and it actually made things much more easier. But that's besides the point. Like because the classes were so small and we got to learn from like two amazing educators, like that really helped us in pushing for our work to be the best that it could have been.
So we have some questions that have come in from participants. One of them is about, which I can clarify, is about the support that practitioners received. So we did provide, as part of this pilot program, a stipend for our practitioners because it's part of lifting up equity and the expertise that they bring to the classroom. These are all individuals who have full-time roles. Monica's a CEO of her own film company, and Charles is the senior vice president over at Eastern Bank. And we have several other practitioners who are also working full-time in nonprofit or leading community efforts. So for us, it was extremely important to have an initiative like this where we could pay our practitioners what is almost the equivalent of what what do we call them? I'm blanking.
A full-time teacher.
Adjuncts?
And
Adjuncts,
non-tenure track.
thank you. I love, see, this is why we're a community, because we help each other. Almost the equivalent of what an adjunct would get paid for a course is what our practitioners are getting paid, and our faculty also received some support to be part of the program. So for us, again, this is so instrumental in being able to make a program like this come to life. But a question that came in for you, Charles, was how has Eastern Bank been supporting your work through this program, and whether you think that your participation in this program has influenced maybe some of the ways that Eastern Bank is thinking about recruiting undergraduate students, or other aspects of the experience.
So a lot to unpack there. Eastern Bank has always been in support of pulling in new students. We have a bunch of recruiting programs there. As far as my immediate team, they've known that I've been doing this, but probably not the whole extent of it. But they've fully been supportive. I've done things in the community similar to this in the past, not a full-time course or anything like that, but I've taught middle school students for a whole semester, and it was, hey, you get out of work at 2, you go to work till 5. I mean, you work with them till 5, and they've always been supportive. This was off hours and a little bit different. So, but my bosses, my team has always been supportive, and Eastern Bank's ethos around what they give to the community has always been great. We do, I want to say 50,000 hours of community service as an organization. And so carrying that ethos on is great for me. And like I said, this is a lifetime goal for me, is to get more experience in this arena. So they've been very supportive.
Thanks, Charles. And we're just really happy that you got a chance to be a part of this. Charles is actually represents the first time that the pilot program has had a person who works in the private sector. Most of the participants in our pilot have been from nonprofit or have been consultants that work really closely with the community. So it's been a really wonderful experience to have Charles come in and be part of this program. Another question that came in from the audience that any of you, like I said, can choose to speak to is around how to connect the work that we're doing through this practitioner scholars program to research, because there's a lot of layers that are getting uncovered even through this conversation about access and equity. So I don't know if any of you want to talk about how you think that this might be relevant to research. I'll also say something about this afterwards, but does anybody want to chime in about the connection to this in research? Or if you've thought about it?
I don't know if this was a question that came in through the chat.
Mm-hmm.
That was also interested specifically on the COVID context. But I mean, I think I love that idea. To be honest, I'm not sure that either of us are thinking about research, but absolutely, I think that we learned a lot about the different dimensions of teaching a course that with attention to issues of equity, which is always kind of at the heart of the project, even before COVID, but then it was like really sort of magnified after COVID. I mean, I think that there's a lot there for thinking about like student retention, for example. So in our course, as Celine said, it was 6 students, started out with 6 students and then eventually had 5 students. And, it would be interesting to kind of see that model how that model can actually be impactful for student success on campus. I mean, we know that there's a sense that smaller class sizes can be quite helpful to some students, but in this case, we had 2 faculty kind of very individualized attention, on and off classroom, one-on-ones. It was a little bit of a package of what it would mean at a urban public university to really surround students with multiple layers of support and accountability and resources and information, all these kinds of things. So I think it would be interesting to explore together what we can take away from this, what can be sort of upscaled, you know, what it might look like to kind of reproduce little versions of this in other courses that are not film related. So I really appreciate that comment from the participant.
And particularly to my work, I would add to that that whatever happened in the classroom and with the projects themselves have helped me in my personal work go through the questions that I should be making myself right now, creating in my own projects. So really making me think about equity and what are the different layers of the impact COVID had in the individual stories. Mm-hmm. So maybe this program have helped me in my own research mm-hmm. for my work, mm-hmm. if that makes any sense. And I think in terms of the impact that this project could have, maybe they will be part of a larger research experiment, because I know a lot of people are putting out there their personal stories, and they might be used in other in other environments. But I think we're going to present these projects, and there will be a Q&A, and students will be able to speak on their projects and get questions, and there's going to be a process of reflection that is embedded also in research practice. Yeah. So, yeah, just to answer that.
Well, thank you all for participating on this panel. There's so much more that we could say, because this is such a rich conversation. I had a ton of other questions that I wanted to ask, but we want to be able to transition and hear from some of the partners that Charles was working with through their course. But again, I want to thank you all for participating in this first panel. And so now I'm going to transition to our second panel. One of the goals of the PSP was to engage in community impact projects as defined by the community practitioners. The projects could support the practitioner's organization or work, a social cause to which they were dedicated to, or a range of issues discussed through the class that could have broader value to the community. The intent was also to help expand our students' connections to the community and to deepen their real-world applications of concepts learned through the course. The pilot has traditionally attracted nonprofit partners, as I mentioned earlier, and social cultural entrepreneurs. And Charles Smith is our first practitioner from the private sector. His personal and professional mission has been to support women in minority-owned businesses, which really aligns really well with the pilot's social justice and equity values. So we've invited some of the additional partners with whom Charles and Kristen's class have been engaging, which were recruited through Charles. And I'm going to pass it on to Charles to share more about how this relationship got started, and he will facilitate a discussion with their small business community partners about the connection between these partners and the classroom. Thanks, Charles.
No problem. I'm trying to start my video so you can see me, but if not, no worries. So the way this got started is that one of my partners at Eastern Bank has been working with a company called Queen's Company that's really in support of minority-owned small businesses, women-owned small businesses. And as I was coming into this project, if you give me 1 second, KJ, stop. Go that way. Hey, we all got kids, so sun sometimes comes up. But with that happening, what we said was, hey, is there a way for us to help these smaller organizations get, some financial help, whether it's business plan, whether it's growth plan, whatever, to propel their organizations to the next level, and use the partnership that Kristen and I created as a lever to do that. We spoke with the proprietor of Queen's Company. The businesses volunteered themselves, gave great presentations, and we've been working with them ever since. So with that said, I want to just kind of let the businesses introduce themselves and tell them what they do, starting with Jessica, because she happens to be in the left-hand corner of my screen. You're on mute, Jessica.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Whitfield. I am the owner of JLW Medical Management Consulting, and our firm focuses on practice management and medical billing solutions for small and medium-sized practices.
Widleen, you want to tell them what you do?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can see me well. My lighting is not working well, but my name is Widleen, and I'm the founder of Fusion Dolls, and we make beautiful multicultural dolls to help our kids to love and embrace themselves. So right now we are located in Brockton, but we mail our dolls to different places, like in the U.S. and Canada.
Taja, are you on the call? Well, Taja, if you can hear me, you're on mute, but if not, we'll come back to you. Widleen, let me ask you this. What made you want to participate in this program?
I mean, for me, one of the main reasons why because I'm part of Queen Company, and so when I saw the program that Jessica had emailed us about, I really jumped on it because I was very excited to be able to see, to connect with students who actually, going to school for finance and also business, because my background is in social work. And when I started with Fusion Dolls, business is not my background, but I know that it's my passion to be able to share my my expertise as a social worker with parents to teach them how important it is for them to have dolls that represent their kids, because that has a lot to do with self-esteem. To be able to have my knowledge connected with the students, it's like we have like different lenses. So that's definitely what really attracted me to this program.
And Jessica, what about yourself?
Well, for me, it's the lack of experience in the workforce that really hinders people from getting a job right away, or even from being able to thrive. And I remember when I was a senior in high school, there was a woman who had graduated with an economics degree. And for 4 years, she couldn't find a position in her field because of lack of experience. So when Jessica had posted it, the incentive behind it was that we were in a competition. And for me personally, I love a challenge, right? I'm very competitive. But on the flip side, we were giving students the opportunity to gain valuable experience that could potentially give them some leverage to negotiate and land a job.
That's a great key, and I appreciate you sharing that. One thing I did want to say is that these businesses are competing for a little bit of seed money via the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation. Not much, but just something to help them kickstart their businesses. And I know that wasn't the impetus for them coming into this program, because they've donated way more time and effort into this than what they'd be paid for. But let me start with you, Jessica. What did you want to get out of this, and then what would be your biggest takeaway from this?
Okay, so this is an opportunity for me to shout out my team, because my team has just been exceptional from start to finish. There are things that I wish I knew prior to this that I didn't know that I learned from my team. So I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm also a student at Northeastern University. I'm in my last year finishing my health management degree. And there was a class I hadn't taken that Dan's feedback on the financial analysis. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that correctly.
Don't worry about it.
Thank you. But he had provided me some tools to be able to better understand, how it really works. I'm not a financial person. I'm an operations person. I can, strategize and get plans in motion. But, when you surround yourself around the right people who have that knowledge, you can then bounce it off one another. And that's what my team brought. Tamar, for the I think it was the first week that COVID happened, she wasn't able to get on the call, but she had sent me an email. That communication where we can, bounce feedback off one another's. They had given me 2 additional ideas for the business that I didn't even think of. I was like, yes. So, just having that strong team to support you and really help get your business to the next level was really not only appreciative, but it was I'm gonna say heartwarming. I was trying not to be too sensitive.
Well, before I go to Whitley, let me say this. So, and Kristen, if you want to chime in here, please do. What we've always said when we walked into the class is that we wanted people to treat the companies as your consultants to the companies. Give your ideas and let them chew on them, but ultimately it's their company. So they have to choose whether to accept the idea or not. But the only thing you can do is that you have to provide them real feedback in order for them to grow. And some of those conversations were thorny, depending on the business. Some of those conversations were a little bit harder because they challenged the preconceived notions that you as CEOs have had about your company and about how to grow it. But those are the things that in real life people do in order to grow. And I hope it was taken in that spirit. But with Lean, I'd like to throw the same question to you. What was your biggest takeaway, and what did you walk into it expecting to get, and then what was your biggest takeaway from this experience? You're still on mute.
So
Good.
So for me, there's a lot that I took away. I even thought about, oh my gosh, maybe I want to hire one of them. Then again, I don't know if I'm able to afford it right now. But so since COVID happened, even before COVID, my group, we talk a lot. We have a WhatsApp group, and we whenever something happened in the business, I always let them know, and they give me different ideas. And they give me ideas about doing YouTube videos, and then I started a YouTube channel, and then they give me ideas about updating certain things on my Instagram. And I really feel like they have been helping me so much, and I feel like I should be giving them a check, because it's wow. I took when I first started, I was just open to learning and also sharing. And when I was talking to them, I'm like, okay, you guys need my bank statement. I just wanted to give them all the information that they needed. And then they were telling me, okay, we don't need your bank statement. You just give us all everything that you spend in your vending event, different things like that. So I was able to send them that, and they gave me all the financial analysis. And I like the way that they work, because they work with me like they're part of my business. And honestly, I think, I shout out to my team, because everyone have been really doing such a great job. And yeah, I'm so grateful.
Well, I want to let Professor Callahan open up with some comments here.
Yeah, so I'm so happy to hear all this, right? I love my students. I feel so proud of them, and I'm glad that you guys are having the same experience. But one thing I realized from the call with you, Jessica, that we did last week, is that a lot of you business owners are kind of starting and growing your business kind of in a silo, because you're solo business owners. And it's not like you want to go to brunch when we could go to brunch with your friends and talk about growing your business and all these ideas. But these students are here. That's their job. And I think, and they're super excited to do it. And I think that, I didn't really see that as such a value add that they could give you. And I think, for them and for you, that piece, just having someone to share ideas and kind of formulate things and refine things and things like that has been super helpful. And with Lean, I see you have your doll there, so feel free to hold it up. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
Taja has joined us. Taja, can you take yourself off mute?
Hi. Sorry
Hey,
about that. I had a technical issue with, yeah.
no, no,
Sorry.
no, no worries. So, two things for you.
Yep.
Tell us a little about yourself and your business, and then what's been your biggest takeaway?
Okay, so a little about myself and my business. So I'll start with the business. So Satin Kiss, I started last year. I actually had the idea about it in, I'll say 2017, but launched the LLC in 2018 and launched the website in February of last year. So essentially what Satin Kiss is, we help people lead healthy, happy sex lives. And so we focus on sexual health and wellness overall. It's an online platform focusing on body safe sexual health and pleasure products, but then also doing one-on-one couples and individuals product consulting and things like that. It is more so about holistic wellness. It's not necessarily just about the sexual element. It's focusing on mental health and mental health and physical wellness and things like that. So it's a full encompassing experience. More so a lifestyle brand than anything else. And it's something that I have found great in helping a lot of different people. It's definitely been a journey. I am actually getting into this program. I was so excited to join because I am a UMass Boston alumna. So I was so proud. I was thinking like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I can't wait to like get back to the university in some way. And be in touch with the institution. And I've had a number of great experiences. So I thought it would be great to be back in touch with some students and things like that. Something else about myself, Boston born and raised. Yeah, I am I'm trying to think of what else I could say about myself. I'm usually
Biggest takeaway from the program. Go there.
program. What I took away from it was that there's a wealth of knowledge and talent on campus. I was able to get so much insight from people whose minds are fresh. Like their goals aren't to climb a corporate ladder. Their goals are to take the information that they're using and apply it like right now. And I was able to make a lot of different changes where I was able to see results like in real time. These students are very talented. I was actually happy. I brag about my students all the time. I think that this pilot program is something that could help a lot of students and also a lot of businesses, a lot of entities in the community. As they're learning, they're going to be applying what they learned or sharing what they learned in the classroom. So they're going to be inspiring a lot of different people at the same time. So I think this is an amazing experience.
All right. So I appreciate that, Taja. I need to ask you to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can teach your students how to give that 30-second elevator pitch normally about your company, you'd be doing them a great service because they struggle on how to do that, but you said exactly what you want them to do. That is great. Before I go to this last question, let me also say this to everyone. You talk about the success of climbing the corporate ladder, and let me tell you this from the very start that Professor and I brought up how we're going to partner with the businesses. They were already thinking about how to make you millionaires, and I said, "Hey, we're not going to be able to make you guys millionaires, but if we could, it would be great." But they were already thinking about that and just how to really help your businesses grow. It was from the very first night. It was like after you guys got off the call, they were looking up your businesses like, all right, we can do this, we can do X, Y, and Z to help this business grow to make them a millionaire. And that is the level of function and design and just their level of hustle that they took into this. I couldn't impart that upon them. Professor Callahan couldn't impart them upon that. They took that upon themselves. So I need you guys to know that, and it was very special to see. But with last question I want to say is this: I feel like all of you have had a positive experience with the program, but do you think that this should be implemented at a UMass Boston? And Taj, I'll start with you as an alumnus. Would you like to see something like this during your days at the university?
Absolutely. I think that even if we implemented something like this at, an earlier point, so this was a capstone project, from what I understand, this was a capstone project for the students. But if students are able to apply what they're learning and their passions earlier on in their academic careers, I think it would help them at that point as well. So they're actually having that hands-on application of the knowledge that they're bringing in, being able to share that back in the classroom, and then at the same time providing these fresh talent, like the fresh ideas and the talents and the experiences and things like that in the real world. So they're gaining experience for themselves, but then they're also making their communities better and these businesses better because they're giving back already. But honestly, I wouldn't even tell my students that they couldn't make me millionaires, because some of the ideas that they've given me already, I've seen an increase in sales. I've already seen an increase in traffic to my website. I absolutely believe that these students, even the 4 that I work with, I absolutely believe that, let's say if I kept them on my team or I hired them on or whatever, I absolutely believe they can make me millionaires, make me my business a millionaire. And they could be also millionaires because I'm going to, I do profit share and things like that. But I honestly think that if students that we have on campus are given the opportunity to apply what they're learning earlier on, not, if businesses weren't looking at interns or students as just like, oh yeah, extra free work, but actually giving them a piece of the experience so that they can provide like real ideas, the kinds of amazingly creative ideas that my students were giving me. Their businesses would take off, and students would be able to gain experience that they don't have to wait for, by the time graduation comes. It's like, okay, they don't have to say, well, I can't wait to use all this information I've accumulated over time and then get out and get a job. They'd be able to, give back to businesses, and the businesses would be giving back to them real time throughout their career, so that by the time they get out, they're already, either they have a role or they've contributed something real, or even I want to say maybe an incubator program. Like if we had something like that where students could have entrepreneurial ideas and be able to work on them and build on them throughout their college career. And maybe, capstone program is amazing. It's good, cumulative, like adding all that information over time. But something like that where you're able to really pour into the students, let their ideas grow and become something amazing. You can have millionaire students in, and not just the money, but just actual business owners while they're in college, and they don't have to wait. It's like they're learning and they're applying it at the same time. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and ways to grow the students and the community at the same time.
Thank you, Taja. I don't think anybody could have said any better. I appreciate your time. In the interest of time, I want to move on to see if there are any questions out there from the community. So I think I've ran over my 15 minutes. And I don't want Cynthia yelling at me.
For the record, Cynthia doesn't yell. No, there haven't been actually any questions come in. So I just want to thank you, Charles, for introducing these wonderful women who are out there and have been very motivated, I would say, by a very personal and special and like social cause-oriented place in establishing the businesses that they have. So I think that this has been a great experience for students to have that direct connection. And it sounds like the students had a lot of impact for our small business partners. So
I would ask Professor Callahan to give the last word, as these were her students, and I just got to kind of chime in and take a little bit of the credit, but these were her students that she's worked with since they were freshmen.
Yes.
And,
I always feel like this course, like my students are leaving the nest, and I feel like so much responsibility to give them all the tools they need. And so I feel so grateful to have this opportunity, Cynthia and Charles, to leave them with these experiences, and Taja and Jessica and Midleen for trusting in us and our students to support you guys and grow your business. That's all been a gift. So we really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
The other thing I will say is that while we don't have any of the other teams that are here represented, we hear similar stories with the other classes also, as you've heard from the students and things like that. So this has been transformational for a lot of people, and you guys being participants in this, you've seen it offhand, but it takes all of us to spread this word about how important this is. So when you're talking to professors, when you're talking to people like that, you should say, hey, have you looked at this model? Have you actually thought about how to incorporate practitioners in your classroom, because it really adds a different lens to it. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Cynthia.
Sorry, I was unmuting and muting myself at the same time. I just want to thank all of the speakers, both from the panel earlier as well as this panel, for just sharing your experiences, your insights on the pilot, for being part of the pilot program, and to everybody who's joined this webinar. It's really truly been a great honor for me working with this group and getting to grow with you all. I hope that we're all inspired to continue disrupting these norms around academe, and that actually prevent us from creating these true equitable relationships with the community, and really hope that this has inspired something for everybody who's joined. We're about to close our time together, and I want to invite our friend Matt Farley, who is the Regional Director for the Southern New England Campus Compact, who's going to share some final reflections. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you for having me. I'm kind of blown away, to be honest with you. I've heard about this program. Cynthia and I have talked about it a number of times, but I've been super impressed hearing directly from the faculty, the students, the practitioners about the program. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. Campus Compact is a national coalition of college universities committed to the public purposes of higher education. And we view that as educating students for civic and social responsibility, but also activating the significant resources that higher education has to improve community life. And UMass Boston is one of our local members here in Southern New England, one of about 75, 80 members here locally, and one of about 1,000 members nationally. And so really proud to celebrate the work of UMass Boston and its partners today. Cynthia and I have chatted about this program a lot, and I've been excited to learn more and share more about it. But today I've taken so many notes. I've got probably 5 or 6 pages of notes here, and that's an important thing for me to understand the depth of this. And what I want to stress to you is that my takeaway from this is around amplifying transformation. That higher education practices know generally that experiential learning, community partnerships, et cetera, are all things that we know about, but this takes multiple strategies, layers them on top of each other to amplify impact. And you see that from the student learning engagement space to community partnership and capacity building in communities, about creating community wealth, both cultural, financial, social, classroom transformation in the way that you can build relationships and have dialogue. The faculty experience was exciting to hear about ways that shaped teachers and disrupting their patterns in that way. And so it's been exciting to hear about how that disruption and that collaboration shapes the way that we teach and learn and build partnerships, and how it shapes our classrooms and our learning in and out of the academy. Most of all, this is grounded in a transformation about expertise, and really an understanding that all of us bring expertise to the conversation, and recognizing that often the academy holds knowledge, but I often say that typically communities hold wisdom. And so how do we marry those two things together in a more intentional way for true transformation, and not just keeping them separate and siloed? Final quick thoughts around the concepts of boundary spanning, which I think is what this program does really well in breaking down traditional silos, and how to put students and faculty and partners to be boundary spanners from their normal lives to work with others in a way that actually builds authentic community in ways that I don't think we see in other methods. And I want to point out, this came up a number of times, the concept of being vulnerable, and how that has actually played out, I would argue probably before COVID, but certainly since that, and how that has shaped the work as well. And so I really am grateful to be here today, to celebrate the work that you're doing, to learn from it, but also how do we hold this up as a promising practice for other campuses to replicate in their own communities, with their own partners, with their own students, so that we can really amplify transformation on a community and society level. So thank you for having me, and I appreciate the time.
Thanks again, Matt. One thing that I didn't get to share earlier that I'd like to share is my graduate assistant, Anusha Shatanya, and I took the learnings from the first year of the pilot last year and submitted a manuscript to a publisher to share more about this program, particularly with other practitioners in higher education that might be looking to do programs like this or learn from these types of initiatives. So we're hoping that will get published at some point later this year, and we'll be happy to share it out with our network and with participants here that joined us today. Just as a reminder, this was videoed today, so if you want to watch this again, we'll be sharing the link, or if you have friends that did not get to join, you're welcome to share the video link with those friends. But again, I just want to thank everybody for their time, for your curiosity, for your questions. And because if you joined today, it's because you also care about changing the paradigm around teaching and learning and who gets to be the holders of knowledge, who are the folks who get uplifted through the learning process. So I thank you for your dedication to continuing to learn about these subjects and being with us today. And so with that, I'm closing our webinar for today. I just wish you all continued wellness and health as you make through your days. We will see brighter days in the future, but it also means that there's a lot of work that we need to continue to do as this disease, as this virus comes to a better place. There are still a lot of other social inequities that we will see amplified post-COVID that I think we all need to remain very watchful of and figure out how we as community and university partnerships can continue to support so that we can be uplifted as a full community. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. That closes our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and please stay in touch with us.